Do you find yourself searching, yearning for more, but you don't know what that more is? I'm Catherine Duncan, near-death survivor, mystic, and intuitive. Welcome to Everyday Awakening. On this podcast, I explore what it means to be alive. I help you awaken into your soul and live fully now. Through inspiring conversations, we'll dive into mindfulness, spirituality, and the transformative power of presence and living aligned with this universal energy. Together, we'll examine life's biggest questions, and I'll share practical wisdom to help you open your heart and awaken to the preciousness of being alive. Delighted to share with you my conversation with Hague. Des is a business executive, investor, author, and keynote speaker. He's the founder and CEO of Hague Enterprises, where he invests in and advises companies nationwide. Through Hague Enterprises, Des has invested in over 50 companies, served on over 20 boards, and provides advisory services and help with turnarounds, buyouts, consolidations, helping drive growth. Des has authored 2 books focused on personal growth and resilience and leadership. His 2 books are 15 Minutes of Shame and Think Your Way to the Top. Des has lived through a lot to become a leading executive, entrepreneur, and inspiring leaders nationwide. Welcome to the show, Des.
Oh, it's great to be here, Catherine, and thank you for the invite, sincerely.
Well, it's great to have you. Great to see you and connect again. We first connected through our mutual publisher, Amplify, and I was so moved by your story and navigating a tough upbringing and childhood and coming out on the other side. So, well, let's dive in. You lived through a lot already in your life, and as I was saying, moved by hearing about your years, teenage years, growing up, yes, Belfast, and then in England, and you were homeless and had physical and emotional abuse, and yet you came through and you learned resiliency. And I just love to start with, can you share with our listeners, what you've learned during this hard childhood?
Yeah, well, yes. And what I'd like to first and foremost say, Catherine, is, I know, and we've all got to keep this in mind, and I think it's very important that my worst day is somebody else's best day. So it's all about putting things into context. It doesn't mean that you can just be blasé and say, oh, it's okay to have endured, pain and suffering. But I do know, I love the book from Viktor Frankl. If you've got a why, you can cope with almost any how. And I didn't know those words when I was 9-year-old, getting beaten every day by an alcoholic abuser. But I've come to recognize those. But the traits for me are, I always felt that I was going to survive. And the biggest and most important thing to me, and I wasn't in this alone. I had 4 brothers. I had an elder brother, Paul, myself, and then my 3 younger brothers. My elder brother was in this fight with me. We were on a daily basis getting beaten, hospitalized. I've had stitches all over my body. My kneecaps have been slashed open. I've got slashes and knife and forks stabbed into my body. Black eyes, gouged eyes. So yeah, it's very graphic. And I mean that. Yeah, when I say that, other people I've had it much harder. It wasn't easy, and I wouldn't, want anybody of any age to go through this. But my older brother also got cigarettes stubbed out on him every single night. I mean, horrific things that you just don't even know the evil that can be around you and surround you. So, but through that, what kept me going was the love of my brothers. And I knew, Catherine, I
Wow.
was 9 years old. My elder brother was 11 years old. I was, 100 pounds, wet. I wasn't a big guy. I was a very small guy coming up against a absolute ogre. And what really kept me focused was, you know what? If I take one bad punch, if I can't get up, I feared for my brothers' lives. And so if it was just pure instinct and my love of my brothers that, when my brother wasn't there, when he was hospitalized or when I was in a rough place, I just thought, if I'm not there, what's going to happen? I've got to be strong. So it gives you, God gives you unbelievable strength. And that was what kept me going. It was like we learn later in life, everybody goes through adversity. If you feel that you can or you can't get through it, you're right. So it's your mind. I didn't know all those words. I didn't know the buzzwords, but I just had this inner strength that, one, I'm going to survive. Two, I need to protect my brothers. And I always felt confident that my life was going to be great. Now, I may have been delusional, but it was that. It was that, like, the hand of God kind of thing, that just kept me going
It sounds like
through all those
grace.
moments.
Yeah, the grace and just the sense and feeling I'm hearing of love gave you hope. That's what I'm hearing.
Absolutely.
And was faith a part of this? Through this, was that part of your family growing up?
Well, if my mother was, she died at 29. She had, a handful of kids. She died of ovarian cancer and deeply, deeply religious Catholic. And if my mother was alive, I probably would have been ordained and I would have been a priest and I would have hopefully been, in the Vatican and around there. But it would have been a disaster for the Catholicism. But she had deep religion, and if I was being, candid with you, seeing my mother just wither away at the age of 9 in front of my eyes in excruciating pain. I mean, I used to lay in bed with her, Catherine, at night in the daytime because she was exhausted. She had metal rods in her knee. She'd lost both, double mastectomy. She had ovarian cancer. She was just going, and she was just dripping away to a Holocaust survivor. It was awful. And I watched that, and then on top of that, then having a demonic woman enter my life who became a tormentor and an abuser for 6 long years. My belief in God was very, very low, but I've always been a very spiritual person. So I don't, I don't need to go to church to say I'm a good person. My life's about helping others and lifting others up. So it wasn't like, praying to God because I felt he'd abandoned me, in all honesty. Now, as I've got older and I thought about, that situation, then you start to reevaluate. But when my mind, what was it? My brain was like, a third formed at 9. There's a lot of the stuff that needed to still develop over the next 16 years. I'm much more religious now, but then I kind of felt he'd let me down. So it was more of a spiritual belief that something's there for me than God himself at that time. Even though I did pray every day, I would tell you that, as I went around running, crying, thinking, what am I going to do and how do I stop this and who can help? It was just a traumatic time.
And I appreciate your sharing the spirituality. I mean, it sounds like you felt something. It didn't have to be named God, but there was some energy with you. Am I right? Just some
Absolutely,
sense of you
something
weren't.
was there. I mean, there's no way I could have survived what we survived. There's just no way. There was a hand. There was a spiritual person, and I would say that is God. I just didn't like him at the time because I couldn't believe he took my mother. But that was just the reality of life.
And so soul shaping who you are. Can you share more than your mom died and then you were growing up, and then as we've talked and learning your history of you became homeless as a teenager, and I think about what you've lived through. It's very huge, huge in informing who you are.
Yeah, well, it was a continuation, really, Catherine. So, my mother passed away. My dad married. We had help, and he ended up marrying the help. And then it was just a traumatic period of time where you're fighting through. Nightly. To be honest, it would be. I came to know the poisonous nature of alcohol. And so, if my stepmother at the time had a bottle of cider, I knew the beatings would be bad, but they would stop. If it went into brandy or a stronger alcohol beverage, a liquor, and Dennis Roussos, the singer, went on Fire and Ice on the radio, I knew I'm muscling up for stitches, knifing, or something bad. So there was levels and escalations and graduations of violence. So at 15, I'd grown to a point. On my 14th birthday, I remember coming home, and I knew it was going to be awful. But I just remember walking into the house. My stepmother's there with my father, and my father had gone from some illnesses as well. And she's screaming and drunk, and she's in front of a big fish chip pan, cooking French fries. And as she turns around, she throws a fork that sticks right in my dad's shoulder. And I'm watching this thinking, oh, and it's just stick, and it's vibrating like a piano
Ugh,
tuner.
terrible. Mm.
And then she gets to grab the frying pan, and this woman is going to throw the frying pan on me. So luckily I could get to her, got her arms, and just pushed her enough off that the frying pan spilled all over the floor. I mean, this is 400 degrees temperature, and luckily I escaped. And that night I went upstairs after throwing up in the bathroom and said, I got to get out of here. And so then my dad, who went to then hospital for a back surgery the next week, she came upstairs, and I'm getting taller and stronger, Catherine. And then that final night, and by the way, my mother, my only mother, my biological mother, she said, and she was a great coach, and she said, Des, just promise me one thing. Made her do a lot of promises. Obviously, I was a wayward child. And she said, just promise me you'll always be respectful of women, and you'll never hit a woman. And I said, of course, Mum. So when I'm going through these beatings, I never hit her back. I just always pushed her back. I never struck her. I never tried to punch her. I never tried to take her. I just pushed her back all the time or wrestled her to the ground. But I did not ever punch her. I never was the attacker. And then as my dad went into hospital, and I'm getting ready for school when I'm 15, and my younger brothers, and I never thought about the trauma that they went through. I always felt I'm protecting them, but I stood outside the room every night. They heard this fiasco going off, and I can only imagine the trauma that it was inside, locked, the fear of it. That it's sometimes worse. I thought I was the brave one by going outside the door and not letting her in, but they were going through their own emotional trauma as well. But the reality is, this night or this morning, Dad's in hospital. She walks in. I'm getting ready. My younger brother Damien is on the bed putting his shoes on. It's 7 o'clock in the morning, Catherine. She comes in. She's absolutely plastered and goes to attack my younger brother. But I just jump across the room and on her. We fall on her, and I push her out the bedroom. And then that night was that incident was, I just threw her down the stairs, and I walked down the stairs after her, and I grabbed her by the throat, and I said, you will never touch me or my brothers again. If you do, I will kill you. And I probably would have done. And sorry, I don't mean to be so, but I was going to protect my brother. That was enough. And that was the day I left. And I said to my brothers, I visited them every day at school, and made sure that they were never getting touched for a good 2 years, because I was 15 at the time. I made sure they were not getting harmed in any way, else I probably would have followed through on some type of, a response. But from that point, so I'm 15 and I've got nowhere to go. So I'm homeless and I'm living in a park just right next to my school, Kimberworth School. And I chose that park because I could see my brothers every day. I knew if I was there, I could see them. And so for about 3 weeks, I'm living under a bush. And then I remember that one of my family friends had a fish and chip shop that my elder brother was working in as well. And I knew it was about 12 miles away from where I am. And I had no money. I had zero. I walked to the fish and chip shop and got a job. And that's how I then created my life. So that's my homelessness story. It was, and then just keeping in touch with my family, my brothers, to make sure they were safe and not getting hurt. But I got them out as quickly as I could, as I then evolved quickly into business.
Mm. And what I hear is you get this job, and then I'm sensing there was an inner drive to work, to get money, to make your way. There was some internal drive within you that not everyone would have. I mean, it's
Yeah.
really miraculous in the moment when I'm hearing this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about it, and to be honest, I'm Irish, so you could say, we don't take a hint. We're stubborn, and I remember vividly, Catherine, like it was yesterday. I am in watching TV, and we didn't get a TV until we were 11, until I was 11, by the way. It was black and white. We had no telephone, never had a new pair of shoes or whatever. You can do all the hardship stuff, but it's true. But I remember watching a program. It was the news program called Calendar. That was the regional news program, came on, and there was a segment about the guy who owned a Alton Towers, like Disneyland, but in the UK. Nothing like Disneyland. It was about a 50th of the size, and nothing of the scale of a Disney. But I remember this businessman had a helicopter, and unfortunately, the helicopter crashed and he died. And so, what does the little guy take out of that was, oh, I want to be a businessman because I want my own helicopter. so, so not the fatality,
Right,
of course
right.
I felt sorry for the gentleman, but I always wanted to be in business. Well, I wanted to be a soccer player, a football player. We call it, you call it soccer here. But, the truth is, my talent didn't match my ambition. So I couldn't become a soccer player. But after that, I always wanted to be a business guy, and I knew I was always going to be in business. From that very early age, I had a newspaper round at 9. Then I went to have a milk round. Then I went into the fish and chip shop, and so anyway, I'm in this fish and chip shop, and I'm learning the trade, and I then get a 50cc motorbike. I'm 16 years old. And then I'm managing the fish and chips. And then I'm managing the grocery store. And then I'm managing the first video shop in the part of England, the north of England, way before Blockbuster was even there. So I had a drive and an ability to do that. So I'm running now a video shop, a fish and chip shop, and a convenience store, and a butcher's store. And I'm going around those businesses as the manager at 17. And I'm doing the books. And all
Wow.
self-taught, 'cause I left school at 15 with no qualifications. But I've always believed, that first of all, the businessman was a genius with his fish and chip. And I spent a lot of time understanding and learning from other people. I mean, this guy couldn't even read or write. He signed his name with an X for his bankings, but he knew how to run a business. So I learned, and actually I was dyslexic as well. So it was like I've always learned abstractly and not linearly through how best to keep and return information. So I just always thought it was all going to work out, and I wanted my own fish and chip empire. If I'd have got my way at 17 or about 18, I was going to buy a fish and chip shop in an area of time. So my family member, or my friend of the family, who I ended up living in the back of his house for safety, so I kind of got myself some security. We parted ways because I wanted to open up my own business. So I bought initially, and this is going to tell you how bad a driver I am, and my wife would definitely, definitely concur with this. But I bought a caravan, like the old caravan. I converted it into like when you get those mobile food carts, now food trucks. I
Yep,
had the
yep.
first one before they were even known. So
Oh,
I
that's
bought
impressive.
one. I got one this is 1984. I bought this, hocked everything I had, £3,500 on the caravan, three and a half, about the same on the car. So about £7,000 investment. When fish and chips, by the way, used to be 52 pence, about 75 cents for what you'd spend $10 now. I'm just trying to give you kind of what that money meant to me in those days. So I'm with my younger brother Dominic, who is the brains of our family, is a double PhD, he's a Pfizer award winner. The guy's a genius off the scale. I'm so proud of him and my other brothers who've done incredibly well from where we came from, every one of them. So I'm with Dominic at the time. I'm driving because I'm going to do my first event to go to this big fair. So I bought, like, I don't know, 2,000 hot dogs, 2,000 cheese, burgers. I had it all going off, and I'm driving to this event on my first event, and I crash my car. I
Oh,
completely wrapped this thing with the caravan around a lamppost. I was again. I had no. I was that night. I was homeless again. I had nowhere to go. I'd sold it all because I was going to live in the caravan. So I'd lost my home. I'd lost my car. I ended up. I had everything I had. I had to sell to then repay. So my God, now I'm homeless again. I'm sleeping on people's
uh,
couches. And it was just he was like, oh my God, is there ever going to be some good news from this? But again, I still believed. um, I watched the 1984 Olympics. I watched the team. I knew every single winner of every single event. I don't know why I did this, but I did a big chart. And I'm watching the news. I'm looking at the newspaper for an ad, and it says, we're looking for a trainee manager. And I never read the newspapers in those days, but I got the local ad, and it said there's a trainee manager for position for a company called Wimpy, which is like the Burger King bought them. And I became a manager of Burger King. So within 12 weeks, I'm a manager of Burger King. I have my own restaurant in Sheffield. Then I ran two restaurants in Sheffield. Then I got the restaurant in Wakefield. And so now I'm running three Burger Kings. I'm 20 years old. And so then I bought my first house for £17,500, a little two-bedroom. You could swing a cat and you'd hit all the walls. It was so small, but it was mine, Catherine. And then my brothers came to be with me, so we were all safe, and it was fantastic. And that was the start of my life. That was the start of having enough money to have everybody safe in my family.
that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And I just see, sense, feel through what you're sharing, just a big inner drive, an inner drive. I was going to ask, and you started to answer about a mentor, what inspired you? But it sounds like the fish and chip owner originally, and then maybe what the Olympics. What along the way inspired you, gave you a sense of hope? I mean, clearly that was coming through you.
It's really funny because I look back on those days, and it was obviously the fish and chip shop manager, and then unfortunately, his brother actually was the guy who raped me when I was in my teens, and violently raped me when I was 18. Even though for years, in fact, until I was 40 plus, I only ever discussed it with my wife because it was an embarrassment and a stain to me, and I never really processed it. I always compartmentalized it, but it was always under, because I was so ashamed. I felt like by the way, Catherine, I'm playing under 16 soccer at the next level down from the county level. I'm one of the team captains. I'm a tough guy, but I allowed a 300-pound gorilla, and he was a 300-pound violent gorilla, to rape me. And I couldn't understand. So I felt, I kind of just denied it, to be honest. I completely just pushed it out of my mind and dealt with it, or maybe didn't deal with it for many years. I've dealt with it now, but I just didn't want to believe that that had even happened. So, I'm thinking about my mentor, and that ended up, and that's why I left the house, because I didn't want to be in that environment. That's why I went off and got my own business. But then, I tell you, that Malcolm was the owner of the fish and chip shop, and what he did learn from him was, one, have a unique selling point of view. He would send me 100 miles to the coast to get fresh cod every day on my 50cc motorbike. So we went to get the freshest fish. So I learned about freshness. And isn't that ironic? I was the president of Safeway's Perishables, $20
Yeah.
billion business, because I
Wow.
believe in that. So from being a young child. But what I learned from Malcolm was to understand, what are you going to be famous for? What can you be the best at, and then be the best at that? The second lesson I got from him was, the day that I crashed my caravan, I then had an opportunity to buy another fish and chip shop on a lease. And so I went to buy the fish and chip shop, and I wanted to have Prince of Cod. I wanted to have my own national chain. I wanted 100 of these things. And that was the game plan. So I went off there. And so I got my friends the night before. We were celebrating. They went to a club. I didn't, but we went to a massage parlor, but not, just for, a normal massage. And lo and behold, my Malcolm is there. And one of my friends said, "Hey, have you heard about Des?" Because I didn't tell them anything. They knew him. I didn't tell them not to say anything. But they said he's opening a fish and chip shop tomorrow. And so what he did the next day, he went to see the owner of that fish and chip shop and bought the lease from him, and said, "You are not going to open this store. You're not leaving my business to come and do that." So what I learned is, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Be able to, don't just disclose everything. I was so disappointed because I couldn't believe my friends would even tell. How did
Yeah.
that all happen?
Oh,
But it did
gosh.
happen. So I learned that. And then the mentorship was really other mentor, and it's not really mentorship. It's like watching things with the eyes. At that time, MTV had just come out, and Kennedy, who I love now, she was the first. If you remember those days, Catherine, you may be too young. Okay, I'll
No,
flash.
no, I remember.
Yeah, but she was the host. And I thought, my God, I want to be in the entertainment space. So that got me thinking about getting into business and doing other things, which we then did later on through some of my business ventures. So it was all those things, like the helicopter crash, my your family member friend who had a fish and chip shop, learning from him opening the first video shop in the north of England, knowing that we were going to go VHS. There was no, instead of Betamax or whatever, they were different tapes. He just had an innate way of looking at business, and I learned from that. But it wasn't a great learning at all times. It was very violent, obviously, as I've already told you. So that's kind of what the mentorship was in my earlier life. But my best mentor is absolutely my wife for 30 years. She ran PepsiCo Europe for operations and training. She was my boss's boss, and she definitely, without her, I wouldn't be running numerous companies and being on 20 plus boards.
Mm, mm. And with what you've shared, what I sense and hear is there's just always been an opening with you, a curiosity, an opening. I know I've heard the line that you shared, never stop learning. There's an innate sense of wanting to keep opening and learning that's been driving you through your life.
Yeah, and it's infuriating because it means that every day is a new day to learn. So you don't I just will not I mean, to me, I remember there's an article on my wall here. It's "Young Man in a Hurry," and Whitbread did this article on their 250th year anniversary. I'm 26 at the time, and the article goes something like this: Young man in a hurry. If anybody ever had a future CEO's contract in his briefcase, it's Desmond Hague. It was in the Financial Times and did a whole article on me. And so I've always been driven to do more, be more, and be part of the solution, and not part of the world's problems. So it's always been a drive, and I think it also, never stop learning, or do whatever it takes. But it's having a belief that you are enough and that you will succeed. And there is not such thing as defeat until you yield. Until you say it's over, it's not over. So I don't care how tough. I've gone into businesses, Catherine, where in one business we bought Hot Stuff Foods in South Dakota. I just bought Letterri's out of Minnesota, a sandwich company. It was a big investment. Within the first 30 days, ExxonMobil canceled their contract, which was 70% of that business's worth. Talk about stress. I enter Ceneplay, the North America's largest event hospitality company. Within the first 30 days, the Arizona Cardinals and the Kansas City Chiefs terminate their contracts. There is always difficulties in life, and I keep coming back. I can't encourage people. I wish you could buy a spine on Amazon, but you can't. You gotta have character. You gotta say, whatever happens, I am going onwards. I've used a message called Onwards, which is behind me on every memo I've done for the last 25 years, every email that goes out from me, because I believe onwards is the way to be. I might be pushed sideways, I might be pushed backwards, but I'm still moving, and my desire is my next step is forward. It's not retreat, unless retreat is the best thing in a tactical and a strategic situation.
Thank you for explaining, because I've seen Onwards for years now, and I love that you define that. And you're speaking to the human condition when you go through something so rough and traumatic. Do you tune into the choice? Am I going to be better or bitter? Am I going to be open or closed? Am I going to have an open mindset, a fixed mindset? Am I going to lean into the positive or negative? I mean, all what I'm saying right now is easy to say, and wow, it takes a lot of strength and courage to choose. I want to live through this, and that's what I hear with you and your story. That's inspiring.
Well, thank you, and I come back to it. It makes you have to rely, but don't get me this wrong. If it's got to be done, I'm going to get it done. But I don't think I'm my own guy doing my own thing. I like to think that I build a team. I got people who want to come and work for me, who believe in the vision and of any company I ever run. But if it's, I know that I will never ask anybody to do anything that I wouldn't do myself 10 times over. So I'm not one of those leaders, I don't want to do that anymore. I've not outgrown being on the line. And I think a good leader is out there front. Sometimes you're a cheerleader, sometimes you're a blocker, sometimes you're tackling, sometimes you're just you're just doing the raw things. But you are vocal and seen at the beginning, end, and middle of action.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I'd be curious to ask, this is a pretty direct question that comes through me in the moment, but that huge drive, success, accomplishment, learning, often when you go through trauma like that, and I certainly know from my experience, can be unresolved grief, unrest. To finally heal and integrate, that can be part of that driving factor. And I'm wondering for you, did you over the years at some point do some therapy? Do you have a piece underneath that you can recognize from where you came from that also fuels that drive? Yeah. Curious what you'd
Yeah,
say.
well, I would say, yeah, I would say that absolutely. I think for the first, 30 years after my difficult times, I kind of just kept it to myself. I talked to it with my wife. I didn't, and I felt I was a little bit ashamed of a lot of the things that I talk about now. And I thought that it would make me look less. So I was more caring about, just see the success, and that wasn't really a good message to send people. If I'd have said, hey, you know what, there's all the, people see me and they say, oh God, he's got it made. He's got a 11-bedroom house. He's got houses all over the show. He's wealthy. Da, da, da. They didn't realize where I came from, so I missed an opportunity to help people understand that I wasn't given that. What I wasn't born on third base trying to hit a home run. I was born right in the bleachers, below the bleachers, where there was awful rodents scurrying around. So I think I did a little bit of a disservice on that, if I had to be candid. Certainly, until I resigned from Centerplate and I had my moment with cancel culture and social media, I always felt it was a weakness to ask for help. I would help everybody, Catherine. I mean, I could give you a million stories, going out of my way. But personally, I had somebody helping in the kitchen. I had somebody helping in the gym. I had nobody helping in my head. And the one, the negative of growing up in a very violent situation. If I'm hit, I've learned I'm hitting back, and then I think. I don't wait for, sometimes I'm built that I defend myself and my family and what's important to me. And then I met with a doctor, Dr. Patty Ann, also a great lady on LinkedIn, phenomenal. I called her my head doctor. And I remember sitting down with her, and I really didn't want to go. My wife wanted me to go. I really absolutely fought it for a while. I said, I don't need any help. You've got to be kidding me. Look at what I do. And I got to think about, you got help in every other aspect of your life. Why wouldn't you have help in the most important thing in your life, and that's your head?
Yeah,
Okay, you
very
can call it your
important.
heart, but your head and your heart, those two things connected together, that's your power in your life. So I got this woman, and for the first several sessions, I was resistant. I was nice, I was gracious, I was funny, but I wasn't into the program. But I think she's been an ultimate force multiplier in my peace, my inner peace. I've been able to unlock all of the different experiences, and I feel I'm twice the person, because I'm now not hiding, ashamed, distressed than I used to keep it all to myself. It doesn't mean I have to go sharing all my stories with everybody on every conversation, but this is specifically is, I think, could help people. I don't have, this conversation that we're having is not a daily conversation I'm having on my life. I just hopes amplify that you're never alone. Everybody you meet is going through difficult times. Have a bit of grace, have a bit of kindness. Stop hating so much. Be nicer. That's what we need out of life. And people say, oh, right now we need it. No, we always need it. It doesn't matter what political party, it doesn't matter anything. Be nice. If you're the janitor or you're the CEO, why would I be different to the guy who opens or gives me my cup of coffee than I am going to be to a board member? I've just got back from a board meeting in Phoenix. I'm no nicer to the guy who put me on my plane yesterday than I was with the chairman of the company the night before. Just have a little bit of respect and grace, and then stop hating and stop thinking we're all so important. We're supposed to be helping everybody get better.
Amen. I agree completely. Yep. And you're just defining to me what healing is. It's physical, it's emotional, it's a spiritual. And the fact that you went down that path to heal the shame, which are completely understandable from your childhood, what I'm hearing, to heal that is the journey. And it's a decision of being kind, moving from living in your ego, or living from your heart and kindness and love. And even I think of the antidote to shame It's love. It's learning how to love and love more.
Right, right. And by the way, and I read your book, and it was, and I know that we talked about it when I was reading it, because I was immediately inspired, and I was talking you through as I got through different parts of the book. I think you were fed up of me giving you texts,
Yeah.
but the awakening
No, it was
is
great.
we all need. It's like when I think about, I think I had an awakening when I was 9, and I found out that life without my mother was going to be a very difficult time. Then my grandmother passed away, which was that woman was, I think about the three ladies in my life, my mother, my grandmother, and my wife. What a great trifecta of blessed people.
Mm.
And I couldn't want three better women to have guided me. And I still think that they're guiding me. Obviously, my wife's guiding me more than I want every day, but, my mother and grandmother, they're guiding me. They're up there. They're saying, hey, you know what, be a good person. Remember my stories. Just the great moments that you can always cherish. And I think having those, but I think about those awakenings of 9, of the awakening that life as I knew it was never going to be the same, but you got to make the best out of your life. And I had a why that was my brothers then. My why is now my wife and my kids and my grandkids. And not, that cycle of misery has been completely broken. They are loved and will be cherished. They'll never have to endure my experiences. My boys, I've never touched one of them. I was never the disciplinarian. I was the fun dad. My wife was she was the disciplined one. Because I just couldn't handle that. I couldn't think about, trauma of what that could do. So I was a little bit softer, I suppose. But I think about the awakening and like what you've done in your life and guiding people into peace. It's incredible. And I think I've had some of that guidance from your book of peace as I've evolved, particularly since, the cancellation of which is in the rear view mirror big time. But moving forward, it's like, how do you awaken the next chapter and the next chapter? So it's actually seeing shoots of positivity that you can bring into your life moving forward. It's a really beautiful thing, and I would encourage everybody to read your book and the humility that you bring and dignity that you bring to people's lives. I truly mean that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Touches my heart. Thank you. Means a lot. So today, with your busy life and all
Yep.
you've learned up to this moment and all the boards you're on and all that you're doing and how you inspire so many executives and leaders in the country,
Yep.
what would you say gives you meaning in life and gives you strength each day? I know you've touched on a little bit with faith, and there was that sense within you. I don't know if you'd lean into that or how you would name that, but what really gives you the strength and grounding each day?
Well, to be honest, I mean, I look at it this way. Every day I wake up and I'm not 6 foot under is an incredibly blessed day. To have the opportunity, I feel, to live in the best country in the world, in the best time of the world. Some people like the Charleston and the 1920s. I don't know if you ever watched the Midnight in Paris, which is my wife's favorite movie. And if on the down low, it's also one of my favorite movies. And Under the Tuscan Sun, if we're going to be honest. I don't know what's happening to me. I should have more, fight scenes and Marvel movies. But any day that you've got to live in this moment, in this time, in the greatest place and space, you've got to just love it. And so I wake up with that positivity. I always think about, man, if I'd have looked back and said, if my 9-year-old self, Catherine, could imagine the luxury and the blessedness that I have in my life now, and I had visions, but it's wildly exceeded my expectations. I'm so lucky, and so my entire life is around. So then that's the second thing. The third thing is I love business. So I'm on 5 boards. I've got the Hague Enterprises where I invest in companies. I've got the Thinking Academy where I'm working with 20 business leaders to lift up anybody who wants to get ahead and stay ahead in their career. And so for me, that's like breathing, inhale, exhale. I love business. I love learning. It's a constantly renewing and advancing and moving onwards. So my whole life is, I feel, is like, it's like being in an awesome movie, which has got unbelievable, benefits. And then, what I do with that is I have, we've raised $100 million for charities. I've never sent, at the time, press releases out there. We had 10,000 children, at-risk youth working through my Centerplate organization a year. 10,000 having a job and a career and a movement. That's millions. The millions of impact that you have. Kids in Baltimore, we did the journey home. We brought John Legend in. We brought Jewel in. We brought Jennifer Hudson in. We raised millions of dollars so we could take kids, homeless kids like I was. I try and always invest in my own personal experiences. So there was the homeless and children. There was the cancer in South Dakota. We raised millions of dollars for kids who were going through cancer treatment. And then we also had millions raised for spousal abuse, women who were being battered by their husbands. So that's always, and we've, at a time when I had a very small company, we put $500,000 in, which was big money for me to help these people. So it's not just when it's convenient. And then we had the Second Chance program. I'm 18 years old in a Pizza Hut, and I'm bringing in former incarcerated people to give them a second chance because, Catherine, for the grace of God, I should have been in prison. I was not a great youth. I was troubled. I was surviving and doing things that I shouldn't have done. So I know how precarious life can be and how you can stray off the path. It doesn't mean that I'm blind to people's evilness, but you also know how by the grace of God, one other thing, and I could have been in prison. So I brought those people in, even at that time. They stole from my Pizza Hut. They broke into my safe, and my bosses wanted to stop the program, but I doubled down and did more. It's not foolishness. So I feel that all that encompasses lifting others up. I feel my biggest responsibility in the world is to be a good person and love my family and that they are loved, and to give them everything that I can and be a good coach. Sometimes it's a bit of tough love. I'm not always the easiest person to be around. I'm not a pushover. I expect you to work hard. I love what, Walton said, Sam Walton. If I need to tell you to be successful that you need to do hard work, then you're not going to be successful. So I think there's certain things that you have to be able to do. But I think that it is a responsibility of anybody who's ever had the opportunity and the grace to be given great things and be given some wealth to do good with it. And that's what I made a commitment of doing. And I hope I can 10 times what I've done so far in the next 20, 30 years. I really believe that my game is not even halfway through. And so I'm looking at this as in fact, I'll even go further. I'm in the first quarter, Catherine, of a football game of life. I might be in denial now, okay? But I really believe there's so much more that we can do, and there's such a positive influence we can have. Right now, we got to make America healthy again. I'm working with Green Giant. I'm working with Raw Foods. I want to make our kids healthy. I want them to have a kids program when you walk into a grocery store. By the way, at Thanksgiving, 1 billion potatoes were purchased. 100 million onions. Green Giant is the premium there. We are going to get behind helping our kids be healthy, giving them the substance. So we want to put a program together on nutrition. We want to do a reading program. So if kids get great grades, Green Giant and Sprouts going to help them. We're going to put foundational things in place. So we've got some great plans through some of these companies to really supercharge what we've already done. But it comes back to, you got to want to believe that part of your life has got to be lifting others up. If you've been successful in this world, you didn't do it by yourself. Yeah, I think I did a lot of it by myself. I had some good people, clearly my family and my wife, but now it's about how can you give back? How can, and not in a self-serving way, but really truly make a difference.
Mm. Well, you're what I've hearing on a whole deeper level in our talk today, and thank you. Just your raw, lived experience, your passion, grace of this, whatever you want to call it, energy, God, higher power, all combined, channeled into purpose, into your passion, and then to truly turn around like, well, how can I help other people? It's inspiring, very inspiring. So
Well,
thank you
thank
for
you.
sharing that. Yeah. Well, I want to be mindful of our time, and I end my podcast by asking you, which I think you've kind of already started to allude to, but from my book, Everyday Awakening, what is awakening? What does awakening mean to you?
I think it's discovery. And, when I think about awakening, it's about what's, some of the dormant emotions in you, some of the things that you haven't learned. So it's like an awakening is having a sense of discovery. It's about the internalism. It's about challenging, but it's about newness and a reinvention and a rebirth or a birth, of a higher presence within you, and that is a spiritual awakening, more and actually a religious awakening. I mean, I'm now back at church. I'm back celebrating. I'm recently back in the fold. Always, I think I've done a lot without needing to be in a church to say I feel that I've done well for society. But I really believe every time there's a greater purpose than you is a good day. I think you don't care about yourself less. You just think about yourself less. There's that ego that, aren't I great, and it can be all in consuming. It's like, from being the first CEO, but it's like, no, I was driven, but now it's about how is other things more important than you? And that to me, it really is my family. It's my 3 grandkids. It's it's my friends. It's my colleagues. It's an awakening of how we can and should challenge ourselves. Just be better, do more, help more. We all can make an unbelievable difference.
Thank
so that's
you.
what awakening means to me.
Yeah.
All those
No,
things.
thank you. Yeah, no, very much resonates with me about just how can I help? How can I help one person in any way? Is it book, podcast, however I can help and give back and inspire another and share light and love. I think that's
Well,
why
without
we're
your book, I
here.
wouldn't have read it and we wouldn't be connected. So thank you.
Yeah.
We've already done that. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on. Can you share with our listeners how to find you, your books?
Yes, well, if you go to if you go to LinkedIn, you're going to go to Des Hague. If you go to Instagram, or you go to Twitter, or you go to it's going to be handle Des Hague. If you want to get my email, it's desghague@gmail.com. Please don't send me any bad emails, please. Only nice. And that's the way to get me. I hope many of you do. And obviously through the Thinking Academy. thinkingacademy.co. I'm here with 20 of the world's greatest thought Sherpas who are here to help you with your career. Learn from our experiences to supercharge your career. So there's lots of ways to get to me, and I hope that you do, and I hope my story resonated and helped and motivated somebody. And please reach out to somebody who you know is at risk, depressed, maybe even suicidal. We have an opportunity to show some grace and love and respect and help somebody. And you could be the decision between life and death, and take that very seriously. Thank you very much, Catherine, and thank you to
blessings.
to your
Thank
audience.
you. Blessings to you and all your work. Thank you so much for joining Everyday Awakening. Let's keep the conversation going online. You can follow me on Instagram at Catherine Duncan, MABCC. And to keep up to date on the show, subscribe on iTunes and leave a review. I'd love to hear from you.